upon Amelia Island, a place where past, present, and future meet. Sometimes it seems nothing has changed in 500 years, and other times it seems everything has changed. There's a word that describes this. Florida, not a state, but a state of mind.
Florida is a dream come true for me. Living here is something that I wanted, I desired, and it was given to me. Florida is a gift.
Florida is about arriving and getting away, staying and escaping. I've done all that, but now I've come in search of the real Florida.
Florida is just too great a state. It's too wonderful a place to live, and everybody wants to live here. And everybody wants to live by the seacoast. I want to live by the seacoast. I want to live where it's warm. So does everybody else. So everybody comes to Florida.
There is only one road to travel in order to really see Florida. A1A, the two-lane road that follows the ocean from Amelia Island in the northeast straight down to the Keys.
Almost everything that you associate with Florida, sooner or later you're going to find at least one example of it somewhere along that road between its beginning and its end.
A1A, a great drive that spans a great state. Our drive starts where it should, on water, at the Mayport Ferry, which 35 times a day makes the 1-mile trip from Fort George Island to Mayport.
The main reason I enjoy my job here is the atmosphere and the people you get to meet. It's great to run the boat, the water's nice, and it's hard to believe that they pay me for it.
The ride takes about 20 minutes. Then we're on our way to the oldest town in America, St. Augustine. St. Augustine was one of the first places in the New World where the Spanish decided to settle down. Today, those settlers and their way of life is still remembered in the Spanish Quarter Museum. Here, people wear the clothes and recreate the lives of the 18th century people who lived in St. Augustine. Come along as we drop in on a few of the locals.
Hello.
Hola.
¿Cómo estás? So you are the wife of?
Lorenzo Gomez.
Lorenzo Gomez.
Yes.
Nice house you have here.
Why, thank you very much.
Tell me, what's so special about this town, about St. Augustine? I mean, I love it, but I want to know, what is it for you so special?
Well, because it has such an interesting past and you still feel it. Don't you feel it when you're in St. Augustine?
Yeah, I
You just feel it because it's still here. All of the old buildings, they're so beautiful and they're restored. And as you walk through the town, you get a feeling of what St. Augustine could have been 250 years ago.
So, who do we have here?
This is our carpentry shop, as well as the lumber storage area for the carpenters and the wood carvers. You will notice one thing about this place, that almost everyone here did not originate here. There is a few natives around here, but most of these people, including myself, came from somewhere else. But after you've been here for a while, everybody considers themselves a Floridian.
To David Pons, the past still hangs over St. Augustine.
Growing up, and I'm talking about the late 40s, early 50s, it had something that is now gone. You cannot find it anywhere else. The idea that a small boy like myself could wander off and be completely okay. There wasn't a problem. Those days are really gone. I think those are some of the best days of my life, growing up on an island like this that was so wonderful.
Modern Florida really got started in the 1880s. That's when one man fell in love with the place, and the state has never been the same. Oil Baron Henry Flagler first saw Florida's coastline in the 1880s. Right away, he decided to build a resort. Then he built a railroad, and that railroad made the way for A1A.
The entire history of the eastern seaboard is virtually a microcosm, if you will, of Henry Flagler's ideas, his power, and his wealth.
Depending on who you talk to, Henry Flagler is either a hero or a villain. Maybe he's both, I don't know.
The establishment of Florida has always been geared towards how many people you can attract, how many people you can bring in. And this goes back to the turn of the century. The whole engine of growth in this state and development in tourism has been the big sell, the postcard sell.
And that big sale is a big part of this drive. As for Henry Flagler, well, don't worry, we'll be seeing him again and again, because the Florida he developed follows A1A right down to the Keys. Now, as we head south, we cross the Bridge of Lions. Built in the 1920s, this bridge is one of Florida's most beautiful man-made objects. But there's more to Florida than what people have built. Nature also brings people to the place. And outside St. Augustine, I met Jay Roberts, a poet who's given a lot of thought to nature and to living in Florida.
We gather at the ocean's edge where temperatures tend to change, in front of cliffs and condos, where wind patterns rearrange.
Jay moved to Florida from California, and he's never looked back.
This is the place where I transitioned from being a person who made his living in suits and ties to a person who just lived his life and let everything fall in place behind that with a lot of faith and a lot of trust that things will work out if you follow your heart. I realized that you must not throw your life away on work, and you must really find a way to live your life rather than just staying inside those offices all day and doing that business, you know. That's really that's what kind of makes people unhappy, I think.
Today, the sea and the seabirds make Jay happy.
I don't know why I got interested in the pelicans. You come down here and you sit on the beach in the summertime, and you sit in front of a condo on the beach, and suddenly you look up and there's 40 birds above you. And they're doing this amazing thing, and you watch them for hours, and you sit in the sun, and you realize that there's something pretty magical going on there in terms of the ease with which they live. And I think that's the part of it that really is attractive to me. Having lived Boston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, it's easy down here, and I guess the pelicans represent that.
As we head south, we come to the St. Augustine Alligator Farm, one of the first, and not the last, Florida roadside attractions.
There was a train that ran along this island, and they kept finding big alligators laying across the train tracks, so somebody got the idea to just start putting them all into an enclosure and then charging people to come see them.
They seem to move very slow, but I suppose they don't move slow, right?
They do expend very little energy, so normally they don't move around a lot except to get food or to find a mate. In the water, they can actually swim pretty fast. It's about 22 knots. But on the land, the top speed, full out, going as fast as they can, is about 11 miles an hour.
So for forever, alligators have been hunted, you know, to do belts and shoes and lots of stuff. Because we think that, I mean, they're ugly and they're dangerous, right?
That is true. Alligators have always been hunted. They've always been used for food, to make leather, alligator leather. And at one time, their populations were very, very low. They were considered an endangered species. They're still protected in some states, including Florida. But in actuality, they have more to fear from us.
I can't believe it. They look like little lizards. What are the difference of a crocodile and an alligator?
Well, I can show you. Right
show me.
here.
And they won't bite me, right? Can I hold it?
Well, if you hold it and kind of put your fingers
I don't really like to hold
have.
these things. Oh, it's a boy or a girl? How do you know?
We're not sure yet.
You see, they don't have anything underneath, so we don't know.
They keep it all inside.
How do you know? I mean, how do
When
you...
they get bigger, we can either probe internally, and you can feel the
And do they have
organs.
Or you can feel their organs. Is it the alligator?
He's opening his mouth, so you can see
Look at
little
the-
tiny, tiny teeth.
And look at the tiny teeth. Oh my God. What's the difference between both of them? Tell
The
us.
main difference is the shape of the nose. See how he's got a narrow pointed nose?
One is longer.
This one's kind of a rounded, more of a rounded nose.
And they're both the same age?
Yes.
A month and a half old?
Within a couple of weeks.
You don't feel like using them for a belt or for shoes when they're this tiny, but then when you're big, don't grow, because like that, we won't.
Between St. Augustine and Daytona, A1A goes right along the ocean, past seaside town after seaside town. You drive past Crescent Beach, Painter's Hill, and Flagler Beach. Remember him? That beach is the only place named for Henry Flagler in the whole state. Just south of Flagler Beach, a more famous beach is waiting. Daytona. Daytona's one of the few places in America where you can hang out at the beach and drive at the same time.
Wow, look at this. Look at this. You know, I'm from the Caribbean, so the ocean is my mother. I love being here in Daytona Beach, waking up to the sound of the ocean, people exercising, pure air. This is wonderful.
Daytona is known as the world's most famous beach, and not just because you can drive on it. Once, you could race on it, and not so very long ago, drivers would race up and down the beach. A few miles down the road from Daytona, Florida's past and future meet. On this beach, in 1513, Ponce de Leon won the race to claim La Florida for King Philip of Spain. 400 years later, the same beach became the starting line for a new kind of race, the race into space.
A1A is the highway that I use every day to go from a domestic, peaceful life at home with my wife and my children to the intensity of the space program at the Kennedy Space Center.
Shuttle astronaut Mike McCauley uses A1A as a way to start the trip from his home into space.
On the way from the vehicle to provide clearance for liftoff.
One day last week, it was a launch day, so I was coming to work a little later than I normally am, so I was up sort of the middle of the morning, and I was on A1A, and on my left, in the lagoon, there was a school of dolphin, a whole school of dolphin fishing, and they were working the water, and it was beautiful to watch them come in and out. And then on my right, not more than 50 yards away, were several large alligators out on the bank sunning themselves on a beautiful winter's day. And I couldn't help but be struck by the contrast between this natural beauty associated with a wildlife refuge and then what it was I was about that day, which was to launch a shuttle off into space.
And once Mike gets where he's going, his home on Earth is right outside.
Well, when you look down at Florida from space, and particularly the East Coast where we live and where we launch from, the contrast is what makes it so spectacular. There's no mountains in Florida, so there's no real vertical things to look at. But inland is green. There's a lot of vegetation in Florida. And then the beaches are clear and are broad along A1A. And then the ocean varies from blue to green depending on the time of the year and the Gulf Stream. But it's a very beautiful site, and it's pretty easy to pick out.
At the Kennedy Space Center, I had a chance to talk with a part-time spacewoman. Susan Mullen loves talking about the space program and her new home of Florida.
Excuse me. Hello. Can you tell us what's your job like? I mean, what do you really do here?
Well, it's a great job. I think it's the greatest job in the world.
What is it?
My job is to provide the public with information and to educate them about the space program and to share the enthusiasm and the excitement of the space program. My whole life, it had been my dream to visit the Kennedy Space Center. I've always been an avid space enthusiast. And when I came out here, I discovered not only is it the most exciting place in the world, it's also the most beautiful. There's lots of places to hike and just beautiful places to go and take in nature. I drive to work and I see alligators and I see wild animals and eagles, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Right next to the Space Center is the Merritt Island Refuge. It's a huge park with over 500 different kinds of birds and animals. They don't seem to mind the rockets.
I was wondering, what do the animals do when a rocket takes off? I mean, do they get scared? What happens?
At the instant of launch, there may be a little reaction. Birds and animals in the area may fly up into the air or look in the direction of the launch, but it's momentary and it doesn't last very long. And once the launch is gone, they go back to their normal routine of feeding and loafing or whatever they're up to before the launch.
It's amazing how, what a completely different environment this is.
There is an interesting contrast between the high technology of the John F. Kennedy Space Center and the simplicity of the wildlife refuge. Obviously, they're both here for entirely different purposes, and they seem to be incompatible when you at first view. But actually, this marriage between nature and technology is working quite well. It's been in existence since 1963, and marriage is still flourishing.
The refuge is a home for the manatee.
Columbus reported, or at least his men reported, seeing mermaids in the New World, and most people associate this sighting with manatee. A manatee is a large air-breathing mammal, and they may be 12 to 14 feet in length and weigh several thousand pounds. They are vegetarians. They spend most of their time feeding. They'll eat up to 100 pounds or more of vegetation every day. They don't have a set pattern of sleeping and waking like most mammals. They're not nocturnal or diurnal. They'll rest for a couple hours and then go back out and feed for a couple hours. And they were fairly abundant at one time, but because of man's growth, it is having an impact on that. Man is responsible for about 35% of all the manatee deaths every year.
For the manatee and for those who visit, this is a place to escape.
When you leave this perfect place, this sanctuary, to go back into the real world, how do you feel like?
Well, there's certainly a contrast when you leave here. You leave the natural world and you enter into this suburban area, and more the refuge is becoming an island in the sea of urban sprawl through Florida.
It's easy to forget that A1A runs right into this preserve. But as we get back on the road, the scene changes.
Can you imagine all these condos on the beach? I mean, how many people can live here?
The highway can get a bit crowded. It's quite stressful during the peak seasons to move around. It's a catch-22 between the residents and the visitors. I mean, we can't survive without them, and they probably can't survive without us.
Florida without tourists is like the ocean without water.
And as you make your way down A1A, billboard after billboard after billboard point the way to the world's largest and probably only 24-hour surf shop, Ron John's. And when you get there, well, you know you've arrived.
We're beautifying the area. We took out a parking lot here, and we're adding landscaping, some more statues that you're going to see coming along here. The money's not that important, really, as it is to come away feeling good about being here, coming to see us. It's more or less you have to experience the store for yourself.
The money may not be important, but it helps.
We want everybody that comes to Ron John's to have fun, to experience what we have to offer, which is the beach. We have 52,000 square feet of everything you need. We're not open 24 hours for nothing. I mean, people come in. We're here when they want to come here.
Well, it's easy to get lost in this store, but at least you know where you are. Everywhere you look, you see that Ron John name. And look out, that name is going to get even bigger.
I mean, it looked beautiful as it was, but we're always trying to improve. So if we can give a more comfortable look and a little more tropical decor around here, you know, it's going to be a more memorable experience for people.
Yeah, I think memorable is the right word here. Now, people come to Florida for many reasons, in search of the beach, sun, and a new life. Others come in search of different rewards, like buried treasure.
I enjoy finding things. You know, when you find a gold ring or a watch or a necklace, it's got a little bit of a history to it.
As we beat the traffic through Cocoa Beach, we arrive at the Treasure Coast. This name is taken seriously by people who search the beaches for buried fortunes.
I'm Robert Marks. I'm an underwater archaeologist, better known as a pirate. I've spent my whole life looking for shipwrecks in 61 different countries. I've found more treasure than anybody in the whole world. And one of the areas I've been working for many, many years is right here along the coast by Sebastian Inlet.
To Robert, A1A is the road to riches.
I start out the day going up and down A1A, infuriating all the people driving because I'm in the street. That's where the money is. The money's in the street. So right on the edge by the curb, and I find coins.
The first A1A treasure arrived almost 300 years ago.
In 1715, a fleet of 12 Spanish galleons were going home from picking up treasures in Mexico and South America, and then they went to Havana. And a hurricane struck, and all 12 ships were sunk along the coast here. So the biggest treasures found in Florida waters were found right here, within 200 yards from where I'm standing right now. Over the years, we've picked up hundreds of thousands of Spanish pieces of eight, lots of gold coins, and lots of gold jewelry.
But soon, the word got out about the treasures of A1A.
When I first came here, there was a lot less sand on the beach and it was easier to find. You could never have a day like today. On a Sunday and a weekend, you'd see 50 or 100 people with metal detectors. People would come from all across the United States and rent metal detectors from, believe it or not, gasoline stations and supermarkets up and down the coast used to rent them for visitors here. So a lot more treasure was found in the old days.
Robert came to Florida on a salvage expedition and then decided to stay.
I came here for 6 months and here I am. 28 years later, I still live here. I just love it.
No trip to Florida would be complete without a look at the state's most popular fruit, the orange. How do these oranges get into your juice glass? Hard work, very hard work.
It's nice on the outside picking oranges. The reason I like to be outside because it's you got more breathing room. I'm not a closed. I can't stand to be closed in. You know, you got more breathing room. And outside work, to me, is more enjoyable. And actually, harvesting fruit, the days don't seem long, it's shorter, you know. 5 or 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours a day. Don't seem long. You get out here, and then when you know it, it's time to go.
Hale Groves began in 1947 as a small roadside fruit stand. Today, that little fruit stand is a big fruit stand, shipping oranges all over the world. Even though the company has gotten bigger, its owner can still be found in the groves.
I find it relaxing to leave the office and go out in the grove, get amongst the trees, and the groves have a healing quality about them. They say the best fertilizer for a tree is the footprints of his owner, so try to get around and look at the fruit.
One way to tell whether an orange will taste good is if it has a thin skin. I guess what's bad for people is good for fruit. And of course, you can just taste and see for yourself. Mm-hmm.
When I'm walking around the groves, I eat a lot of citrus. And for most of the year, it keeps me real healthy. I enjoy watching the young trees progress. A real healthy young tree is an enjoyable sight to behold. Like, for instance, when the oranges come and they're big and bright and clean and loaded down, and that's a good feeling when you pick them and you see the bin just full of big, beautiful oranges. You know you've done a good job.
About 60 miles down the road from Vero Beach, we come to Palm Beach. Okay, now, when you think about Palm Beach, you think about big houses, fancy cars, and rich people with juicy secrets. Well, it depends on who you talk to. And I went in search of one man who is used to handling Palm Beach's secrets. Mm-hmm.
I'm Mike Shoemaker. I've been a letter carrier here in the town of Palm Beach for 15 years, and I really love it a lot. There's not another place in the world I don't think I'd ever want to deliver mail in.
You have a lot of responsibility here, huh?
It is a very enviable position to work in. I know there's people out there all over the place that would kill to have routes over here.
What's the best part of your job, Mike?
What I enjoy most about it is doing what I'm doing right now, just getting out in this fresh air, sucking up the weather.
What's so special about A1A?
The A1A probably has the most beautiful old mansions, in the United States of America. And overall, it's just a very pretty drive. I've been living here all of my life, and I still don't take it for granted. I love to every once in a while get out there and take the drive.
Look, that's the Breakers. The hotel, the gorgeous hotel in Palm Beach.
One of the founding fathers of Palm Beach is our old friend Henry Flagler. First, he built a fancy resort, but after it burned down, he built an incredible hotel on the same spot, the Breakers.
When Henry Flagler came down to South Florida to pick out a site to build a resort, this had to be the most tropical-looking spot in all of Florida. I still get a thrill every time I walk in and look down the length of the lobby, as grand as it is with the frescoed ceilings and beautiful chandeliers. It's great fun delving into the history and telling the story and passing it on to the people that come through here.
President Coolidge once said, "Every American deserves to be rich. Every family should have cars, homes, and a good life, and the Florida land boom, by golly, is going to provide it all." And with that, Boca Raton was born. In 1925, a famous Palm Beach architect named Addison Meisner wanted to build an entire town. He got right to work. These plans are all that is left of his dream. Today, Addison Meisner's legacy is the world's famous hotel known by locals as the Boca. Nearby are the homes he planned for a community of dream houses. But then, the Florida land boom went south, and Meisner only built 29 houses. Who cares where the boom went? Because these houses are still here, and they are still beautiful. And I got a guided tour.
Meisner also was a really good architect, and he could handle space beautifully. The inside of the house just flows very logically.
from one area to the other.
It's like living in the outside, the way it's designed. You get a different vista every time you move through a different room in the house.
I like the living room, I guess, which has a lot of charm. Mr. Meisner used picky cypress a lot, which is a very durable woods, which the termites don't like. So it's gorgeous and durable. And it's also a very pleasant place, environment in which to live. Because there is some solidity and continuity living in an old house that is not readily available elsewhere in this community and in other houses.
It's beautiful.
Addison Meisner worked with nature to build his dream. After I left the Pounds, I went to a different kind of place where another kind of dream can be found.
I used to bring my marine biology and oceanography classes through this area. Before we ever purchased it, I knew the value of this property. To the north and to the south, you'll find nothing but high-rises. And to me, they're very ugly pieces of concrete. But we've been able to reserve this, and if you only look around us, this is exactly the pristine hammock that was here years and years ago. And if you'll notice, and even as you walk through this hammock on the boardwalk, we're right next to A1A, yet you hardly hear the cars going by.
Every day, Gordon teaches kids about the beauty of Florida's beaches.
Did you know, boys and girls? Today, we'll bring in third graders, and as they're exploring the beaches, they become acquainted with the type of sand, anything that might come up on the beaches here. So by them actually picking them up and holding them in their hand, it's a lasting experience for those youngsters, and they'll never forget it. It's a very rewarding feeling because you almost feel like you've touched their lives just a little bit. This has been my love for too many years. I know one of these days I'm going to have to walk away from it, and that's going to be real tough.
After we leave Boca Raton, it gets crowded along A1A. Let's see. There's Deerfield, Pompano Beach, Sea Ranch Lakes, Lauderdale by the sea, and then you get to Fort Lauderdale. Known as the Venice of America, Fort Lauderdale is special. The reason? Well, it was one of the few times that Henry Flagler guessed wrong.
Henry told his rail builders, fellas, let's not even bother to stop here. Let's just roll right on by because this place will never amount to a hill of beans.
The best way to see Fort Lauderdale is by water taxi. There are over 300 miles of waterways and 40,000 yachts here. So if you want to find a rich man with a boat, this is the place. But Lauderdale isn't only a place for fun in the sun. It is also rich in Native American history. Here on the Hollywood Reservation, members of the Seminole tribe still try to carry on the old traditions.
Florida's a home for me and my tribe. This is where we was pushed in, and we was raised in it, and our people lived and hunted. That's where they fought it for. There used to be a beautiful oak trees and a lot of cypress tree that we lost out there. Instead of leaving the oak trees and build houses around it, they cut it down and they plant in place of that some other plants, which sometimes it don't do no good.
Too much development right now, but I think they should stop developing and let's get back down to the basic and preserve what we got left. We seem to kill off everything and waste a lot of stuff. But Florida is green, and it's trees, it's water, it's the ocean. That's what it means to me. And Indian sand. Seminoles horn.
The Seminoles still carry on, but as time goes on, it gets harder and harder.
I hate to see our language get lost, and I hate to see our tradition clothing get lost too. Our tribe is trying to keep it back and putting people in there that knows tradition and old way of doing, and so they're trying to teach these children now.
Today's generation, my son and grandson here, face a slightly different challenge.
I feel our tribe has always adapted to whatever life presented us, and we had good groundbreakers to set our path the right way, and I find it easier. Hopefully Aaron will find it easier too.
I mean, the Seminoles will be here, but they won't be the Seminoles like us that know our language and our culture and our tradition. They won't know that. They'll be Seminoles, but they'll be far advanced than we ever were.
But change isn't unique to the Seminoles. As we keep heading south, you see development everywhere you look. And it's not pretty. In fact, it's pretty depressing. However, one place along the road has changed for the better. The Art Deco capital of the world, Miami's South Beach. South Beach started as a major resort in the 1920s, but times changed and the tourists went elsewhere. But in the 1980s, South Beach came back to its former glory. Now, it's crowded with tourists and locals looking for a little sun, fun, and adventure. Not far from South Beach is one of my favorite areas, Calle Ocho in Little Havana. Guess why? Look, aha! Here, all friends spend the afternoon playing dominoes on the neighborhood plaza. And guess what? I ran into an old friend. Well, you know, imagine this. All of a sudden, we came to the Domino Plaza, and Alberto Schilling comes to me. I don't know him, and he says that we can talk a lot for hours because he knows me since I was a little baby. He comes from the same town that I'm from in Cuba, Cienfuegos, and he's a good friend of my father and my mother. And I'm going to speak in Spanish with him because he doesn't speak English, ¿no? Bueno, ¿me reconociste? ¿Cómo me reconociste?
Bueno, te reconozco no porque te conozco desde niña, sino porque ya se sabe de...
¿Quién soy?
¿Quién eres por tus actuaciones?
¿Qué es lo que más te gusta de esta ciudad?
Bueno, me encanta porque un porcentaje, un 50 y pico, un 60% de los habitantes de aquí, de la zona de Miami, pues son de origen cubano.
Déjame preguntarte, si en Cuba de repente se va a Castro, ¿tú tuvieses planes de regresar o te quedas aquí en la Florida?
Mi amor por Cuba es tan grande que creo que no demoro ni una hora aquí.
¿De verdad? The real Florida is not found in the big city. It's found further south. Cayos is little island in Spanish. In English, it's pronounced Keys, which is where we're now headed, the Florida Keys. There are over 1,000 keys with 75,000 people living on 42 of them. The Keys open everybody's heart. It's a very special place with some very special people.
I remember as a kid driving down here on A1A with my father and grandfather at a very young age and just being enchanted even by the tackiness of it. I mean, even then they were making serious attempts at at making it tacky, but they haven't perfected it the way they have today.
At Dolphins Plus, Dr. Dave Nathanson got some help to make his dream possible.
My real interest was always in looking at ways to improve the lives of the kids.
Dr. Dave uses dolphins as a special kind of living therapy.
Good. In, please, Mom.
But dolphins specifically have a number of properties associated with them that make them, I think, better for this type of work than other animals. One is that they're in the water. And being in the water, that element of being in the water is part of relaxing the children. The dolphins have more about them. For example, many of these children, many of these disabled kids orient to the world through a tactile sense, through touch. When you touch a dolphin, it feels like suede. It's a wonderful, pleasurable sensation. Many of the kids are quite fascinated by the sounds the dolphins make. So you listen to dolphins, and that holds your attention. People are mesmerized watching that. Their movement is quite poetic and very beautiful. And on top of all of that, they're highly intelligent and sensitive to the kids, so they can learn behaviors very quickly. They enjoy working with the kids. And you put that, in combination, and you've got kind of the maximum or optimum sort of animal-assisted therapy. A tremendous amount of joy out of really being able to help the children. It's a very delightful kind of feeling. It's almost like it's a natural sort of high that occurs.
Animals can help people, and people can help animals. Down the road in Tavernier, Laura Quinn has built a place for sick and injured seabirds. Every morning, she makes the rounds, comforting her patients.
People find birds sitting by the side of the road. They see birds standing along the beach with a broken arm, and they don't know what to do, but they have to have a place to take it that can cure it, if there's a possibility.
Laura has dedicated her life to saving birds from people's mistakes.
It's hard to understand the people who don't understand. They really have never been out in the wetlands. They've never seen birds feeding, and so they have no concept of what they're doing wrong. And I think that's one of the reasons we're here, so that people can walk through this place and see that the birds need this kind of a place.
Laura's birds are fed and cared for until they can return to the wild, but some can never leave, although they are welcome to stay. And there are always new patients.
And then if a bird is brought in, why, everything stops and we take care of it. But it's a 10-hour day, 7 days a week.
I had a chance to watch Laura in action, taking care of a starving cormorant.
Under the skin, because he's so dehydrated, we know we can't hit a vein. See, you can't even pull the skin up. It's just his skin and bones. So we put sub-Q fluids into him, and then that's absorbed into the system.
Will he right away feel something?
Well, it'll start to absorb, and we hope.
Laura did the best she could, and the bird will be cared for until hopefully it can return to the wild.
Hey, you're going to survive, you'll see. Yeah. It's okay. I don't know what else to say. I mean, there are no words here.
Well, to see a horror story, you should have seen a pelican we had this afternoon. The beak was broken, the pouch was all torn open, just destroyed. His whole mouth was destroyed by a fishhook.
Laura depends on strangers for donations because she won't charge admission. To her, education is more important than money. She means to get the word out about what is happening to nature in Florida.
We never know from one day to the next how we're going to pay our bills. We don't charge admission because we want everybody to see the place, because we think that's one of the most important things we do, is to have people walk through and understand what their discarded fish line has done, and to understand why we have to preserve wetlands.
No matter what happens, Laura will not give up, despite the odds.
Well, we always feel like it's a losing battle, that unfortunately money rules the world. So we're outnumbered, outmanned, and totally out of sync. But then maybe it's the rest of the world that's out of sync. We like to think that.
Ernest Hemingway called the drive to Key West a dreamlike journey, and he knew what he was talking about. The Atlantic lies on your left, and the Florida Bay on your right. And as you drive, you hang between two worlds.
We're standing 90 miles from Cuba, 157 miles from Miami, here in Key West, Florida, America's Caribbean island.
For writers like Robert Frost, Tennessee Williams, Truman Capote, and Ernest Hemingway, the Keys were a retreat from the rest of the world. They still are.
We come here to relax, to express ourselves, to read great books, to look at the water and the sky and be ourselves, and then we have to go back into the real world. This is not the real world.
Here, two artists were inspired to turn bits of scrap iron into art. Lida and Bruce Siegel believe it was Florida that helped them find their art.
I started in our garage in Key West, welding these things together, and then when I finished with them, we primed them, sprayed them with a base coat, and then she took over and spent sometimes 6 months or longer painting and working on the designs. And so I consider myself an artist now because I have this feeling about welding pieces together.
This sculpture takes me a year. And I have the time and the feeling in this environment that I can stand here for a year and do this. And it slows down the world. Being in the Keys slows down the world, I think. I stand back after a day's work, after 6 hours of painting or 10 hours of painting, and I scream with glee. I love it.
There's a feeling of openness in the Florida Keys that I don't feel, that I don't experience when I'm up north. A sense of freedom. I guess it has to do with the fact that we're outdoors and there's just, we're really here with nature.
And finally, at the southern tip of Florida, we find the Conch Republic, better known as Key West. Conchs get their name from their ancestors, who used to eat a lot of conch seafood. Key West was the end of the road on the march to the south, and in 1912, when the first train arrived, all the conchs turned out. Well, the railroad no longer runs along the beach, but people still turn out. Only now, it's to celebrate the sunshine.
I compare it to other parts of the world that I have enjoyed and really know quite intimately and love this island. You know, they always say that you can take a conch out of Key West, but you can't take Key West out of a conch.
Key West hangs on the edge of America. Maybe that's why the people who live there hang on to the past and each other.
We've been meeting for 40 years, 40 years, every month.
Meet the ladies who lunch at the Santa Maria Hotel.
It's just really a compliment, you know, when you live on the little island, if you can say you're a native conch, and I brag and say, I'm 4th generation.
And they call all the ladies in red shawls red shawling because they're gossiping and talking among themselves.
Red shawling goes back to the old sailing ship days when women would wear bright red shawls while waiting for their men. And as the boats sailed in, the men would look for the color red.
You know, what was happening about their husbands and at sea and what kind of a loot they were coming in with this time.
Those days are over, but the red shawls and the history of Key West lives on.
I love being a conch. I wouldn't be anything else because being a conch means you're warm-hearted and you love everybody and you share with them. We're the greatest sharing people on earth. We'll give you our heart if you ask us for it.
For many, Key West is where Florida ends and the Caribbean begins. It is time to celebrate the sunset and the end of our drive at Mallory Pier.
If you want to party and be around people and commune, this is it. It's gotten a lot more commercial because it's got discovered, but the heart of it's still here, and that's what I'm here for. You guys hear me?
This is the only place on the East Coast where you can watch the sun sink beneath the western waves.
And you see some things here on the pier. And these are all black sheeps in their families, these people. We work here together. But we work out very well together here. You see on this side we have performers, over here we have artists. But we work out very well. We work very well together.
Street performers like Will Soto use the setting as their stage.
I have a hard tie here. You know, this is sort of my home. I've been here. This will be my 19th year of doing shows here with the sun setting. I mean, you can't find a more beautiful stage backdrop than this. It's so almost religious some nights. And what, you know, better of a tradition can you have to work at?
Oh, my drive's over, but I've learned a lot. And the answer to one question changed with everyone I met. What is Florida?
Well, I think Florida has an interesting road to hoe or whatever, in that it probably has more retired people per capita than any other place, and probably a lot of young people too. We have the two extremes, and if they can learn to get along together here, that would be ideal.
Florida is a home to me and my people because we fought hard to hold on to this land that we live in today, and I think most of all our Indians are proud because we learn how to live on it and we learn how to cope with the outside world.
A1A puts you in touch with the soul of Florida. What you have to do is take the time to look and ask, just what makes this place so special? I learned that for some people, Florida is a place to look back on one's life.
Well, Ponce de Leon was right. Florida is a fountain of youth, and it's a think young place, and it's just a place where lots of people come and enjoy themselves in the years of their life where they don't have to work anymore.
For others, Florida is a place to look to something beyond life.
It's still an enormously, magnificently beautiful place, and it does make people feel serene, and it makes them feel closer to whatever God they might believe in.
And for others, Florida is a place that must be saved from itself.
I don't know that we can ever save Florida. The only thing is we have to keep trying. There are lots of people who say Florida can't be saved, but you can't say that. You just have to keep trying.
I've come to the end of my journey, the end of the drive, the end of Florida, and the road that took me so far. A1A, la carretera hacia los sueños, the highway of dreams.
Funding for this program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
This is PBS.